All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Being.Totality podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me, Renee, your host. And our guest today is Mr. Daniel DeSena. Hey, Daniel. How are you?
So good to be here. Thanks, Renee.
Yes. And you are from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Yes, that's right. I live in Ann Arbor now. Yeah.
How is it out there?
It's cold.
It's cold. Yeah, it's cold here too.
Really
I'm in
cold.
Huntsville, Alabama.
Okay. It's cold for Huntsville, but it's probably not Ann Arbor cold.
Yeah. What's the temperature there?
Oh, it's in like the 20s. I think it feels like it's in the teens. But
Wow, it's in
yeah, it's
20s.
cool.
Are y'all getting snow?
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah, we've
my.
had a lot of snow.
Oh, we haven't even seen snow yet. We just got cold air.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we'll just jump right on in. Tell me a little bit about like what you do.
So I work right now. I'm a therapist who is also, I'm transitioning into coaching. So I launched a coaching business in early 2025. And so I'm currently transitioning into that world, but all of it is the world of it's the world of healing, but I'm working a lot with people around relationships and emotional awareness and then how that intersects with spirituality. And also I do a lot of work with embodiment.
Okay, embodiment, that's nice. Because when people, especially in relationships, if you're having a hard time, that can take a effect on the body as well as the spiritual and mental part of things. With your clients, do you have a lot of people that's coming in for like relationship issues or spirituality issues?
I mean, I guess it's a little hard to separate it all out. My belief is that like the deepest level, you call it spirituality, call it like existential awareness of existence and like why we're here, but almost always there's some sort of spiritual part of it. There are certain people that they don't want to go there. That isn't the way they think. They may not think about their own spirituality as contributing to maybe something that they're struggling with. But I think it is the case that often there is some element of how they relate to something bigger than themselves that contributes to that. So, yes, spirituality and relationships and the whole journey and how it all intersects. That's sort of the business that I'm in, is trying to make those connections.
Yes. Do you find it sometimes difficult helping your clients find or pinpoint where the main issue could be, where they should start to try to heal or break it down and try to understand what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's often one of the dilemmas when people are struggling, is they don't even quite know why. Some people do. Some people might have a breakup, or they haven't been able to find a partner and they're saying this is what I want, and why can I not get there? And some people, I'm a therapist, so I do work with people who struggle with mental illness, and more usually I've done a lot of work with trauma. Some people are really just overcoming their trauma, overcoming the past, and learning to live in the present.
For sure, for sure. Has there been any like really pinpointing stories that your clients have told you that kind of stuck with you?
I have to be careful about talking about clients in any sort of public way because it's confidential information. So
Right.
I can't talk about very specifics about, but I will just say that, I have worked with some people where part of the dilemma is that they never have been able to feel a connection to God or spirituality at all. And where there's maybe a desire to feel that, but maybe they see other people, and these other people are living lives that seem infused with spirituality, and they're like, how come I can't do that? And then it's very frustrating. And often, I think that people, the way we grow up often has an impact on that. I grew up with a very spiritual family, and even though I don't adhere to the particular spiritual practices that I grew up with, I have my own spiritual sort of journey, but I think that it gave me a foundation. And there's some people that don't have a foundation. They might be growing up with a family where there's a lot of atheism, or just like ignoring that part of life.
That's definitely true. It can be hard finding a foundation when you don't even know where to look first because there's so much stuff out there and you can literally get lost in the sauce.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot, I'll just say that one of the sentiments is, I'd love to be able to believe it, but it just sounds like bullshit.
Oh,
It's like,
yeah.
it sounds like spiritual woo woo shit, or it sounds like this whole thing about people going to heaven after they die, like it just sounds like magic, and I can't jump on board with that. And
Right.
so without some way to make a connection to something bigger than ourselves, I think that takes a toll on us.
Yeah, and with that being said, like, that's how I discovered that I was a pantheist.
Mm,
And that's kind of the spiritual journey that I went down, especially after discovering like my passion for yoga and meditation and sound healing and things of that nature. And then when I look back on a few Bible verses and stuff, and I come to find out that, like, Jesus is actually a mediator, and nobody really says that. So, yeah, like looking back at certain things, especially when it's religious, some of it doesn't make sense, but I get the main point, like, for, like, why it was put into place for, like,
mhm,
the early civilization and stuff like that because, you don't want a Mad Max situation going on. That would be
mhm,
crazy.
mhm, mhm.
But, yeah, like, asking the right questions and asking the why and looking up your own evidence and things of that nature because usually the answer is right there in front of you, but people don't want to do their own research, but when you do your own research, you'll find the answer right there, you know?
Mhm, mhm.
That's one thing that I discovered on my journey. I feel like that's like my kryptonite, and I'm always gonna be a forever student, so I'm, like, always, like, reading different books and trying to make my own notes, and I love journaling and stuff, so that really helps out a lot when it comes to trying to find a foundation. Just start small and keep it going because you're gonna go down that rabbit hole eventually.
Yeah, stay on the path is the key.
Yeah.
Keep staying curious, keep staying open, and just see what the next thing brings. I mean, it will lead you somewhere.
Most definitely. Now, is there like a story or defining moment that shaped who you are today? Like throughout your work?
It's interesting. Yeah, you sent me a questionnaire and I filled that out and like it actually got me thinking about like, okay, if I had to like pick one story, like what would it be? There have been a few big moments that I would say were really important for me. One of them was that I was in a relationship. This is what, maybe 15, 16 years ago now, 17 years. I was in a relationship and I was engaged and um something just didn't feel right and I broke off the engagement. And I was training to be a therapist. My first career was music, and then I moved into therapy. And this is during the time that I was moving out of music and into therapy as a money making enterprise. And I was starting to become a therapist, and I had a supervisor, and I had just broken up with this person I was engaged to, and I felt like it was just like it was like a crisis moment.
Mhm.
And she said, "Are you in your own therapy?" And I said, "No, I'm not in my own therapy." And she said, "Well, you need to get into your own therapy. If you're First of all, you're going to be a therapist, so you need to be in your own therapy anyway, because that's I think important for therapists to be in their own work. And I was just starting out. I hadn't even started a practice yet, but I was training. And she's like, "This is what you got to do." And also, I was having relationship problems, and so that started my journey in therapy, which I don't really see a difference between my spiritual path and my journey in therapy and understanding my own emotions, understanding myself in my human form, so to speak. I feel like that was such a huge moment for me to actually start to look inward. I've always been an introspective person, but I hadn't done it in
On
that
yourself.
particular way. Yeah, I mean, I hadn't yeah, there were things inside of me that I was avoiding. I was actually more focused on like spirituality and like what's the truth, in like a more like objective way. But I wasn't willing to do the subjective work on myself to understand my own experience of myself and how that connects with spirituality. So this was sort of like the going inward part that I was missing. And that moment where I started my therapy and I had that crisis was like that set my life in this direction of the inward exploration that I needed to grow and understand myself. And then that's what really helped me not only to understand how I fit into the world better, but also how that fits with my spirituality, how I understand God, how I understand, the bigger reality.
You decided to look inward. What have you discovered? Because it's
Yeah.
always exciting when you discover things about yourself that you never really thought about before.
That is such a huge question. It's so important. I think it really helped me to recognize. I'll just say one of the things I've noticed over the years is that I had a kind of lack of humility that I wasn't willing to own. And, one of the things that I've been able to really recognize, which has helped me to love more in general, is how the more that I can understand myself and understand and have empathy for myself and like grieve my past and like really know myself in that way, that's what allows me to then say to another person, yeah, me too. Like
Yeah.
someone else might be exhibiting something that there's a part of me that's kind of doesn't want to look at it or is critical of it. And like what I've recognized is that that's a projection. That's me saying, I don't want to recognize that that's a part of who I am too. And for the more work I've done, the more I grieve, the more I say, yeah, like this really sucks. This is hard. Then I see someone else who's in that same position. It's like, yeah, me too. I get it. But that's the foundation of empathy. Whereas in the past, I might have been like critical or like said, "Oh, that's them and not me." And the truth is like we're all connected. And usually when we're critical of someone else, it's because we're actually not wanting to see that in ourselves.
That's a good one. That is a very good attention to awareness there because a lot of people say that they look inward but can't even recognize that part, and that's a vital part right there. Especially when it comes to like accepting and like being okay with those parts of yourself because you can't really be okay with all parts of yourself until you really dig in there and look at the good, look at the bad, look at the weird, and all of that stuff and accept it anyway. Like, you have
Right.
to accept it in order to create growth and learn how to live and compartmentalize if need be, just to make sure that you can still be authentic, but also showing growth with like making those smaller changes. And awareness is always the number one key.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. So I like that. That was great. What currently inspires you right now in life?
I'm really
I'm
inspired
really
right
inspired.
around relationship. So I'm in a relationship with a woman that I dated. We dated for 7 years and then we broke up in mid 2023 and then we got back together in October. And so we had over 2 years off. And in the meantime, she moved to Costa Rica, which is a big shift for her. And I'm just naming that as background because I have grown. That breakup was huge in terms of my personal growth. That was another one of those moments along my path where it's like I needed that breakup. Like we loved each other a lot and we really wanted it to work and we just couldn't make it work. And I led us in basically consciously separating and making a decision to just say, okay, we need to take some time. If we're ever going to make this work, we need to break up right now because we're hurting each other. We're hurting the trust between each other. And so we did that. And then when we came back together, we both had done a lot of work in the meantime, a lot of our own inner work. And now we're in such a different place. And I'm in this place now. And to answer your question, the inspiration of like, how can I let this relationship with this sacred person, this sacred being, continue to work on me, continue to help me to understand myself, continue to lead me into more humility, continue to help me grow more. So it's not just having a relationship where we love each other and we have good times together. It's also for each of us to be in our own spiritual paths. And how does the relationship become like a cauldron for further growth in our individual lives, in our spiritual lives, really? So I'm inspired by that because every day, and right now we're doing long distance because she's in Costa Rica and we're trying to figure out how we can be together, but we want to do it. And so we're having these like 2 and 3 hour Zoom dates where we're like just in it and in the mystery of like what's going to happen. How can we be authentic and be together in our authenticity, whatever it happens to be? It it can be wonderful at times, it can be challenging at times, and all of it just feels really meaningful. So the inspiration of like it's kind of the idea of her being like an oracle for me to understand myself better. And I'm the same for her. But ultimately my interest is in creating a relationship with her where we're both growing together and then being honest with each other about that. So that's really been inspiring me a lot lately because we just dove in so 100% together to do this, and she's on board with exactly what I just said. We're both on board with letting the relationship push us to grow and learn about ourselves.
That. I love that. There was a quote that I heard from someone, I forget who it was, but they said, like, when you fall in love with someone and you really wanna make something work, you have to fall in love with them over and over and over and over again because people grow and
Right.
they may not be the same anymore. So you have to continue to keep falling in love with them. And I feel like that's what you guys are doing in your own special way. You're falling in love with each other again and again and again. That's
Exactly.
adorable.
It is, yeah, and it's also that the reason we don't fall in love with each other again and again is because we get caught in our mind around ideas about what we think something should be. So this is
Mhm,
how it connects with the spiritual path, like when you meditate and it's like, "I'm meditating because I wanna be enlightened," or whatever, like, our mind is creating an idea about what meditation should be, and of course,
mhm.
meditation isn't becoming enlightened in some way that your mind can understand. So like so much of meditation is like being open to just letting go of whatever the mind might create about it or about anything. And the same thing with relationship. What does my mind create about what I think a relationship should be? Like I'm showing up saying this is what it needs to be for me today. And if I do that, I'm limiting it. I'm putting it in a box and then I'm upset when it didn't turn out to be exactly that, right?
Exactly.
So every day it's like and this is the spiritual piece of it. If I can recognize that God knows better what's best for me in terms of how I show up in this relationship today. If
Mhm.
I open up to the possibility that I don't actually know what's best for me, but it will unfold and I'll learn something and something will happen, then you open up to these possibilities that are so much greater than what the limited mind can make up about it. Does that make sense?
It does, and that's the part that makes everything worthwhile because it's exciting at the same time.
It makes it more exciting. Yeah, it can be scarier, but it's like, would you go to a movie if you already knew the end of the movie, you know?
Right.
It's like
Exactly.
a little bit like, "Oh, it's a horror movie. This is gonna be scary," but I go because I'm not sure what's gonna happen, and I so, like, the fear is part of the process of
Mhm.
opening into something that we're not aware of or that we don't know how it's gonna end.
Exactly. Exactly. I love that. That is so awesome. Not many people get to experience that, and not many people even understand that type of perspective. So that's amazing that both of you are on the same page and doing the same thing. Like, I think you got lucky.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it's exciting, and again, it is scary sometimes, and it
Mhm.
pushes up against the parts of me, the old parts, the young parts of me, so to speak, that are, just want it to be easy, just wanna have, like, certain types of sexual experiences or whatever, and all of that is like, my own desires are good and important to be aware of, but some of that is like a childlike part of me that's looking to make a relationship into something in particular, making her into something in particular.
Mhm.
Versus like, can I just enjoy really getting to know who she is versus what she gives to me, what I get from it.
And piggybacking off of that, one of the questions that I had for you was who do you feel most called to support or serve? And your answer was men. Elaborate on that for me.
Yeah, I think there was a point when I recognized that I am a man, so I identify as a man. So I think that I believe that I can only serve or teach or whatever around things that I know intimately and that I've already been through. Like
Mhm,
can't I don't know what it's like to be a woman. And I've worked with a lot of women as a therapist, and it's been a journey of me really trying to open my mind and heart to what would it be like to be a woman? And that's not something I can like firsthand know. There's no way I could ever really know it in this world today, especially the way that women can be treated. So that being said, I think that I really feel called to, because I've had my own path as a man, to like discover what I feel is healthy for me and what works and what is a pathway that you don't have to give up your masculinity fully. You just have to learn what healthy masculinity is. For instance, that's an example. So I really believe that everyone has their own path, and I can never really know what anyone needs for their path. But I do think that because there are going to be certain people that I'm going to be able to relate to better around that. And so that's why I've sort of narrowed my practice more to be working with men, although I do work with couples and I do work with women. But under certain circumstances.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. Like I wanna work with my main goal is to work with especially work with men around relationships. And I get a lot of women that come to me that are sort of like, "My man, I need help with my man."
Right, right, right.
So that I mean, often that is because, I mean, it's always on both sides to some extent, but often the men that don't know how to show up in relationship. And so,
So
yeah.
that leads me to this question. Do you think that a lot of men have an issue with understanding what healthy masculinity is? Because online, when I'm like researching and stuff, I see a lot of like blue pill, red pill type of
Yeah,
stuff. And I'm like, what is that? Like,
right,
you don't have to be like all the way hardcore. Like, you can
right.
be in tune with your feelings and still be, a man, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of my interest, partially because, my history is that I grew up in a family where like, macho masculinity was like absolutely wrong and horrible. And it was a reaction to that, the unhealthy part of masculinity.
Mhm.
My mother had been hurt by men a lot when she was young, and so I think she really wanted me to be a good guy, you know? And in some ways, I think she saw any signs of masculinity and she tried to sort of push that out of me. And so, I don't blame her at all. Like she was just, thinking like what's healthier than what I went through? In some ways it sort of swung to the other side. It goes from toxic masculinity to no masculinity. Don't even be a
Right.
man because it's dangerous. So for my journey has been like, how do I find where the middle ground is? And so, as a therapist, obviously I'm working with people around feelings and emotions. And like, I think that men that really have a good handle on their own emotions and don't just push them all away in the name of masculinity, like that's healthy. It's healthy to find a good relationship with your emotions. But there's also elements that can get pushed away when men try to be too much in that area and they don't learn to occupy the inherent strength of what it means to be in your masculinity. To me, masculinity is about strength. It's not that this is getting into a conversation about masculinity and femininity, but uh, my approach to this is the masculine and feminine are just names for energies. They're not really about men and women.
Mhm.
So I'll just go into this for just a minute, just so that it's clear about when I talk about masculinity. And from the framework that I'm using is based there's a lot of people that talk about this out there, but I think that it gets misunderstood. And I'll just explain what I mean by it. Like if you think about masculine and feminine as having nothing to do with gender at all, it really are just different energies that we all occupy. So you could have a completely gender fluid, lots of possibilities out there in terms of what gender is. And then you have a continuum between masculine and feminine energies, which have nothing to do with those genders. And you think about masculine energy as an energy of giving and containing and holding space. Like if you think about like parents have masculine energy in the sense that they are containing and holding space for a child to grow. Even if it's loving energy, you might think of motherly energy as feminine, but really motherly energy of helping a child grow is masculine energy in the sense that it is creating a container of safety so the child can grow. That's masculine energy. Feminine energy is receiving energy. So if I as a man I'm in my feminine, I am receiving. And a lot of men who are actually in their feminine and who are just selfishly wanting to get something from the world and trying to force it, they use what seems to be masculine strength and they're actually just trying to get their feminine needs met. Because
Right.
masculine energy is giving energy, not receiving energy. So if someone is in their masculine, they are giving, they're containing, they're creating something for other people. They're creating. So like you think about like a king, like in the most, like king is a bad word these days. And I'm using this in a very like sort of symbolic way that like let's say you had an absolutely beneficent leader. That person is saying, I'm here to serve my people. I'm creating something for my people and my decisions are about my people. That's genuine masculine king energy is I want what's best for my people. And it's a very selfless energy. That's
Mhm.
masculine. Feminine energy is I want to be in charge because I want
Because
to
I
do
want
what
to
I
do what I
want.
want.
That's feminine, actually. It can be very forceful and seem masculine, but it actually isn't masculine. So the way that I'm just to go back to the question, or how are we struggling with masculinity as men? Most men are struggling with masculinity on some level. Not necessarily consciously, but as a culture, we're struggling with masculinity.
Yes, that's
How do
true.
we, because either it's like, red pill is sort of like saying, I'm not going to give in to what I perceive as feminine power that is taking away my power as a man. That's kind of that's my sense of the red pill idea in the red pill movement. I think that men, if we want to be in our power, we've got to find it. There's no one to react to. No one's taking away our power. We have to find power inside of us. There's no woman out there that can take away my power unless I let her. And I think if I'm getting online and spewing a lot of vitriol about how awful women are, they have taken away my power.
Exactly.
I can step into, I am going to be fully in my happy in who I am in my own power. And I want to create for whoever, it could be anything. I mean, I could be a gay man and I could still do that. It doesn't matter. The masculine energy is an energy of strength and confidence, comfort in who we are, and it's a giving energy. So I'll just stop there. There's so much that we could talk about in this particular way, but
I'll have to have you on again so we could talk more into that because I am following exactly what you're saying. And I'm like, yes. See, I never looked at it from that perspective before when it comes to like feminine energy being you said a receiving energy. Yeah, I
yeah, I
never
mean, if you,
heard it like that before.
yeah, giving and receiving, like, um, I mean, if you think of it just sexually and naturally, like in a very natural way, it's not necessarily this is always the way it plays out if two people are making love. It's just that there is a natural way that there is more of a giving energy from men and a more of a receiving energy just because of our bodies.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that that's the way it has to be, because you can play with all kinds of energies in sex or in any part of your relationship. You can play with anything in any way you want to. I could decide, hey, I was just talking to a friend of mine who was like, hey, because he's hip to this stuff as well. He was like, he told his wife, I just want you to make all the decisions for a couple days. Can you be sort of in your masculine and I'll be in the feminine, where I'm receiving you being able to hold me and make a lot of decisions, because right now I just need some support. I need to be in this place for myself. So that was an example of how he was basically negotiating and leading a conversation for his wife to actually just give him a chance for her to lead. Masculine energy is leading energy also.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love the fact that there's, like, an experiment out there that couples are doing. Like, that is so cool just to see, just to see
Yeah.
how it.
It's conscious. It's conscious, like it's about being conscious and about making choices and feeling sovereign,
Yes.
instead of feeling, if you feel like you're angry at the world, then you're in a very limited place. So for men, what I think men can learn to do is take full responsibility for their own lives, the happiness of themselves. Absolute 100% responsibility. No one else can take away my happiness and no one else can create my happiness. It's my job to figure myself out by going inward, to figure out what it means for me to interact in the world in a way that feels life giving to me. That's my job. And I
I
don't know how
I
you
believe
feel.
that's everybody's job because I do that too, because, like, if
Totally.
you can't make yourself happy, no one else is gonna be able to do that. That's an inward introspective job, and that's for every human being that's on this planet. So, like,
Yeah,
you gotta look to yourself first before you even think about getting into relationships or anything like that, because it can get kinda crazy out here if you are just not aware of yourself and just out here doing stuff. A lot of people get hurt that way.
absolutely. That's a great
Yeah,
way to put it. Yeah. Like, if we don't look at ourselves and take responsibility for that, then we will hurt people. It's inevitable, because we will project the inner pain that we have onto someone else. And we all do it. I mean, we all do it to some extent, but the goal is to limit it as much as possible by taking responsibility.
and
So with
being
men,
aware of it.
absolutely. And I'm speaking about my work with men, but I think there's a lot of men that aren't really willing to take full responsibility for their happiness and their lives. And they're playing in a victim role, basically.
Yeah,
And
I
yeah,
think I think a lot of men don't know how. So they shy away from it because they don't have a path to it yet. I think they
Exactly.
just need an opening, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's no one's this is more just about trying to understand how to create something that will help people grow, help people get more of what they actually want, which is to be happy and content, right? Yeah, no blame
Absolutely.
here at all. Yeah.
Exactly, and a lot of people always say that, like, "Oh, I wish I was rich and all this and that," and I keep telling them I told my friend the other day that, like, money is only gonna get you so far. Like, there's billionaires and millionaires that, unalive themselves all the time, but they have everything, and that's only because, like, when you look inward, when all the lights and the fame and all that stuff goes away and you're sitting in your living room alone, like, do you really know yourself? Like, are you really happy? Like, are you content? Like, what's going on with you? And a lot of people don't sit down and look at those parts of themselves. And then when they finally do, it's a shock. And then they get scared. And then that's when you turn to like different things like alcohol and things like that because you're just scared, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so many we all struggle with these things, so I think that, for us to find our way back to a path of inner growth and understanding ourselves. And I think that also connects with how do we understand how we fit into the universe. And like
Mhm.
that path to me is it's the most rewarding path. And I'm speaking from my own experience. I'm not meaning to like impose this on anyone, but I think the most rewarding path has to do with getting to know who we are truly versus getting caught in the ideas about who we're supposed to be that we've been taught by society or taught by our families or whatever.
Yes.
I work with a lot of people who it's like, oh, they're discovering that all those old patterns have led them to feeling miserable because they're trying to get something that actually doesn't even exist,
Mhm.
trying to
That's a
get
fact.
something in the world. And like, you're not going to achieve happiness by getting anything in the world.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Materialism and utilizing the standards that society has put out there is not for everyone. It's not for everyone. And that's one thing that I had to learn once I turned 30. And I was like, okay, society says this, this, and this is what I should be doing now at this age, and this is what I should have did already, etc. And I'm like, when I look at me and I sit down and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, do I really want that or do I want to do this and this and this? Now, society says this way that I want to do is wrong, but that's what makes me feel good. And for me, happiness for me is living a fulfilled life. Like, I don't have to be rich. I would like to be comfortable. I think everybody would want to just be comfortable, with their lifestyle. But
Mhm.
also, like, the small things matter too. Like, I wouldn't mind just like, having like a little lake house or something and just go out there and just read a book and tend to my garden. And I'm the happiest person in the world, you know? So, like, the small things matter too. It's not just money and materialism and all that stuff, like all the stuff you see on social media, because all that stuff is fake. But it's the smaller things within that matters a lot. And I think a lot of people forget that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with if someone wants to buy a lake house, great, but that can't happen at the expense of doing your own inner work. Like
Right.
if like a lot of people, if they're not doing their own inner work and they inevitably start to feel kind of like they're not comfortable in their own skin,
Mhm,
and then you think, well, if I just get that thing, then I'll feel better. That's the dilemma.
mhm.
It's kind of like, wherever you go, there you are. If I could work my whole life to be rich and famous and have lots of stuff, and then I'm still going to be just as miserable as I was before I started achieving all that if I
Exactly.
haven't done any work inside to understand myself and learn to love myself really.
That confidence and that self-esteem and boundaries and knowing what you value, things all of those things in one come together, and it really lets you know, like, or set like a guideline because, things change as you get older, but, like, it really helps when it comes to, like, the beginning of looking inward. I remember when I did that when I was, like, 27, I sat down with a big old journal, and I was like, "Okay, what do I value for real? Like, what are my boundaries for real? What patterns have I noticed in my own self? You know, like, and sometimes you do have to put it on paper. Some people do like voice notes and stuff like that, but either way, it helps. Like really, like asking yourself those questions and really getting down
Mhm.
to the nitty gritty. That's very vital.
Hmm.
I want to ask you, when it comes to your work, like with practices and rituals and things of that nature, what do you use to support your inner well-being, like your mental?
For myself. Let's see. I mean, I pause only because it's been such a journey of like I've learned about so many different methods, or I guess you would say paths, spiritual paths, and sort of growth paths.
Mhm.
I've always been kind of like a junkie when it comes to that stuff. Like I'm always like, oh, that's cool. That person's talking about that, and that sort of lines up with this, and I'm always sort of connecting dots, and so it's always sort of like, where am I now, in that journey? I studied with a Taoist teacher for 6 years. I deeply went into the world of Tai Chi and Qigong and what's called Neigong, which is basically like it's called inner cultivation, the inner cultivation path on the Chinese medicine, basically Chinese medicine and the Tai Chi path, and that's sort of based on the Taoist spiritual beliefs. And I studied that, which is really what helped me to sort of bring spirituality into my body more. I mean, yoga. I studied yoga, but I didn't really go deep into it, and I kind of wish I would have. I did a lot of yoga, but I never like went super deep. And the Taoist stuff really helped me to sort of understand that mind body connection and the connection to spirituality and the connection to the natural world, because Taoism is so good with all of that.
Mhm.
That I still practice that. It's an energy cultivation method. It's connected with the bigger picture of spirituality, it connects with emotional elements. It's a very holistic system that kind of hits everything. Emotions, the body, spirit, all of it is just in one system. And that system really helped me a lot. And then that system led me into just curiosity about I study the path of sacred sexuality, which is not that much different than the Taoist path. It's actually very connected because the whole idea is that sexual energy and life force energy are really the same thing.
Mhm.
That we have such an idea about sex and all that we are not aware of the fact that sexuality and energy are so connected, and like learning how to feel energy and learning how to work with energy in your own bodies, just like you do with yoga, right? Yoga involves energy and breath and all of that. This is just a Chinese, sort of ancient Chinese version versus the other, like the yoga path, which is just a different tradition.
Yes.
But so this mixture of Taoist, the stuff that I learned from Taoism, and then just going down the path of studying sacred sexuality. And that's some of what I teach men, is around sacred sexuality and working with energy in their bodies and that kind of stuff. And then I started to get into understanding like more shamanic, the path of shaman cultures from, eons, and the pathway in the Americas is sort of the red path, which is the pathway of the Native Americans and the indigenous peoples to this country and Central America and South America. And like there's so many beautiful holistic methods that come out of that are very similar to the Taoist methods, just with different terminology. So
Mhm.
it's really like it's sort of this mix of like, how do we understand ourselves, and how would ancient cultures have understand what it means to be human, 20,000, 30,000 years ago, and it's much different than it is now. And
Yeah.
that a lot of these traditions come out of those very
Those very
ancient
ancient
traditions, which
traditions
act
which
really
we
intelligent, complex. We didn't have the technology that we have in the external world. We had a very, very refined inner technology.
Yes.
And that's what's left over in a lot of these traditions now. So I'm just fascinated by all of that. So I study all of it and I practice it. And right now I'm especially connected with the Taoist traditions. And I'm also studying, I'm starting to study a sacred sexuality tradition that's connected with the Native Americans called Kwodoshka. And that is a very holistic way of understanding sexuality, very healthy, very holistic, interconnected with relationships and personality. So that's kind of my journey, is learning about all that, and it just keeps coming together more and more. I love it.
That's amazing, and learning about the different like, the similarities, but the different places that it comes from, because I fell in love with qigong as well. I love qigong with the element of wood.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh," because sometimes I can look at a tree when I'm on a nature trail, and I'm like, "Wow, that's like that branch is, like, winding up that other tree, and then it's connecting to a different tree," and it's like,
Yeah.
"Wow." And I'm like, when I think of it in a yogi way, I'm like, "Wow, that's just fluidity right there," the nature just being fluid.
Yeah. Such a strong growing energy and wood energy, right? So just think that's what
Yes.
it does. It grows and yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
When I first learned about it, I fell in love with it, and then I started practicing it along with my yoga, and I was like, "Wow, I can really incorporate this, like, into, like, a different practice where I can, like, mix it," and yeah, I fell in love with it. I'm still practicing it now. That's how much I love it.
It's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's really a life study. I mean, it's something that you could keep cultivating for your whole life and still have more to go.
Yes, definitely. Okay, now a little bit more of a serious question. So, what questions are you currently exploring within yourself, like right now, as your practice expands?
The question that I'm exploring the most is what does it mean to truly love another person?
That's a loaded one right there. That's loaded. But you know what? I bet you'll have fun like learning the answer to that though, because it can go all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, part of the thing I've learned the most is about it's kind of like we were talking about before, our idea about what love is not the same as what it actually is.
Hmm. It's actually really deeper.
You probably know in the Tao Te Ching, you know, the famous book, the Tao Te Ching, like the first line is the Tao that can be named is not the true Tao. And I think that is such a beautiful metaphor for most things in life. The things that we have in our mind about what things are is not often what it actually turns out to be.
That
And a relationship and to truly love someone, if you have an idea about what that's supposed to be, you're not present with the unfolding of what it actually is. This is connecting with what I was talking about earlier about my partner and I. And it's, can I really be let go of my ideas about what it's supposed to be and instead open my mind and body to what it is and what it becomes as I participate in it and observe it and witness, you know, what's happening. That's to me, that's a very deep practice, and it's challenging because that's where all our triggers come up and all the things that don't feel good in relationship, you know, it's sort of like
Mhm.
the part of us, it's like, "Oh, man, I want it to be that. This is what I think it should be," you know? So, like I was saying earlier, love to me, love is about just like an ever-present curiosity about what is unfolding,
Yes,
who this person is. Who is this person really? Can I, like, actually have enough humility to say, I don't really know this person yet. Can I wake up every day and actually say, I wonder who she is today
yeah,
and let her be who she is today instead of trying to control and force who she is?
yes, and that is deep. That is really, really good stuff right there. I'm gonna have you on again so we can go further into this. This is a really good topic.
Mhm. Happy to.
Yes. Okay. Now, we're gonna wrap it up with one last question. So, like, describe what a holistically fulfilling life looks like to you personally from your own journey.
Holistically fulfilling. I think the word holistic itself is such an important like guidepost for me because, you know, like if I get very narrow and I think this is what's important right now and I get very focused and say, let's say that I have some idea that I want to achieve something and I get lost in that idea and then I lose track of the rest of my life. I'm not holistic anymore. I'm not thinking wide. I'm not feeling wide into the bigger picture of my life and what my whole life needs. I'm just narrowly focused on that one thing at the expense of maybe other parts of my life. And so part of my journey has been learning how to keep in mind and use my intuition, really more of a right brain sort of intuition of like, how is what I'm doing right now fitting into the bigger picture? Does it feel good? Does it feel right? Does it feel aligned? And that when I'm really, really aware and like wider and aware of all the different parts of myself, and what I need, and maybe with where are the parts of my partner or where are the parts of my friends and my family. And can I have a wide awareness of like what I'm trying to create in my life and how what I'm doing right now is connected with that. or is
Mhm.
it hurting things? And it's just about being aware. So to me, that's what it means to feel good is it's like finding the balance of the different parts of my life and how it all goes together and, wanting the best for myself and for the people in my life. So I don't know if that
Yeah,
answers your question, but I think
it
that
does. Okay, so when you said that, that is exactly what it means to be totality, you
mhm,
know? I
mhm.
love that, and, that is really funny because, like, I chose the name for the podcast for a reason. It's called Being Totality, and that right there is Being Totality.
Yeah.
All right, Dan. Yay. I love that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up and tell the viewers where they can find you on social media.
I am on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I mean, maybe you could put in the caption or something. You could put my actual handles. I have a YouTube page and yeah, I can give you that info and I have a website. You can give all that info, but yeah, I'm a coach and I'm really just I am interested in like the truth and interested in what allows people to create the best relationships possible. So, yeah, I'm happy to talk to anyone about what they're looking for in that way. And you can find me and you can schedule like an assessment call where we'll talk a little bit for free and see where it goes.
I'm definitely going to put all of your handles and your website and all of that good stuff in your caption once I post this. But this has been a great session. Thank you so much
Thank
for the great
you.
conversation.